Thank you very much. How many of you young people have listened to that song? Sung in 1960s by Mbaraka Mwinshehe Mwaruka, Vijana wa Afrika. I urge you to listen to that song. But let me start by recognizing His Excellency the Governor, who continues to serve in a unique way in this country. Permit me also to recognize the senior officers of his government and senior officers of government. My good friend John, who mediated this invitation, and of course Esther, in whose docket we are present here. Every time that I have the opportunity to share my thoughts with young people, I remind them that throughout the ages, it is young people who have changed their societies. If you look at any society, whether it is in the continent of Africa or outside of the continent of Africa, it was young people. Today, we do not give much meaning to history. But if you look at individuals who contributed to the struggle for independence in this country, and think of individuals such as Dedan Kimathi Waciuri, ask yourself how old he was. Today, when you read about history, you think he was born old. But I go further and invite you, go and read about Dedan Kimathi Waciuri. Read about individuals who participated in the struggle for independence in the continent of Africa, outside of this country. If you don't mention the ones that you know, they were young. Whether it was in Tanzania, it was a young Nyerere who came up with ideas, a young Obote, a young Kaunda, a young Nkrumah, a young Sankara, and today, without much information, I see even in Matatus, a young Traore from Burkina Faso. And we must ask ourselves as young people who are gathered here, why are we here? The other day, I listened to the minister for the time being in charge of the treasury in Kenya, talking about our GDP being 136 billion or thereabouts. That is what we produce, the 50 million of us in Kenya, 136 billion United States dollars. I do not know whether you have heard of a supermarket called Walmart. Walmart's earnings last year is 564 billion. It means that a supermarket in the United States of America generates more money than 50 million of us. And we are the 6th largest economy in the continent of Africa. Are we doing well? No, we are not. Today, when you travel across the continent of Africa, and I do, there is not a single place that you do not meet young Chinese between ages 20 and 30. What are they looking for? On the first day of July, I was in Lodwar at a hotel called The Cradle. On a table next to me, there were 5 Chinese. I took time to talk to them. They were between ages 20 and 35. They were in Lodwar. How many of you here have been in Lodwar? How many of you young Kenyans have been in Lodwar? Yet young Chinese traveled over 11,000 kilometers to come to Lodwar. Then when they succeed, we wonder why. Waswahili wanasema, safari ya Ijumaa hutayarishwa Alhamisi. They are preparing themselves. His Excellency, the Governor and his government have invited you here for 2 days because his government recognizes that without young people, this county and by extension the Republic of Kenya will never realize our potential. But remember, being youth and being young is not a permanent stage. In the next 10 years, you will not be young anymore. You will be old or older. And the world will ask of you, what contribution did you make? I was listening to my good friend, the Minister for Agriculture, or the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mutahi Kagwe. And he was telling Kenyans that we import, is it 5 billion eggs or thereabouts? I may be wrong about the numbers, but we import eggs. Can you believe it? Did the chicken in Nyeri forget how to lay eggs? That we should import eggs? As young people, are you involved in agriculture? I was talking to my good friend here who is the advisor of the President of the Republic of Kenya on matters agriculture. And I was telling him that next year Africa is going to import food. We are going to import maize. We are going to import wheat. We are going to import rice. We are going to import sugar. We are going to import many things, which means we cannot feed ourselves. As I sat there, I watched the documentary of an old man growing macadamia. But he was complaining that the middlemen are shortchanging him. The question that I'm asking you after this conference, how many of you here will be engaged in agriculture? Because he or she who cannot feed himself is a slave. Today, we are talking about artificial intelligence. And as we sat down here, our good friend donated smartphones to some 2 young people. Waswahili wanasema simu janja. Do we make any smartphones in Kenya? The best we do is assemble them. I heard the musician here talking about YouTube. Do you control YouTube? Do you control Instagram? I'm asking you young Africans, What will you do during this week of invention and innovation to create things that will benefit this country? My good friend here, Gashisho, will tell you, when we were at the university in the 1980s, that is almost 40 years ago. Many of you are younger than that. We thought we could change the world. We shouted student power. We thought we were God's gift to the world. We now know better. He or she who wants to change the world must first change himself or herself. And that is why I'm commending to you a book written by an individual called Ryan Holiday, Discipline is Destiny. Discipline is destiny. You know, many years ago, as a young student in 1994, to be exact, I had the honor and privilege of serving as an intern at the foundation and under the late Tanzanian President Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And I learned one thing as I took time to travel with him in certain parts of Tanzania. And I remember one iconic speech which he repeated several times, talking to young Tanzanians. And he said it in Kiswahili. He said, for the politicians who are here, siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi, na siasa safi. Siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi, na siasa safi. Ardhi tunayo. Watu tunao. Tatizo letu ni siasa chafu. And siasa is not these campaigns, you see. Siasa is about decision making. In Africa, we think politics is a bad thing. Politics is the organization of human affairs for the benefit of those humans. That is what politics is. Do we organize our affairs in a manner that benefits this generation and generations yet to be born? And Mwalimu went on to say, siri nyingine ya maendeleo ni vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Mnanielewa vijana? Malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. And this is part of the training that you get as I see it. You know, many times I marvel at what is now happening in a country called China. And many of you who are older will remember, in the 1960s, there is still a country called Korea. And there are textile industries where they made cheap material. We laughed at them. Today, the South Korean economy is bigger than the economy of the entire sub-Saharan countries combined. You go to the supermarket, even Magunas, you find Samsung from South Korea. You find LG from South Korea. What did they do that we are not doing? What did they do that we are not doing? You young people, what did they do? What did their young people do that we are not doing? And what must we therefore do? In the last 30 years, during my own lifetime, the Chinese have pulled 842 million people out of poverty. Watu ambao walikuwa ni maskini, fukara, sasa wana mapato. Ni nini walifanya? Ni nini? There was a time, not so long ago, His Excellency the Governor may remember this, a group of Kenyans went to Israel for a benchmarking on dairy farming. Because Africans are fond of going to places where they want to benchmark, even when there are no benches to mark. When they were in Israel, they were told that we also came to Kenya to benchmark at a farm of a man called Christopher Murungaru. What is my message? My message is that there are good things happening here, but we don't see them. So you young people who are gathered here today, you young people who have been brought here today, during this week of innovation and invention, during this week when you are talking about creativity, during this week when you are talking about culture, during this week when you are talking about discovering your potential, the question is, what will you learn from here? There are now over 68 universities in Kenya. When we were at the university, there was only one university. When we left the university, you are guaranteed employment. In a manner of speaking, you had a buffet of opportunities. You only had to pick and choose. Today, you graduate from the many universities. You graduate from the many national polytechnics. You graduate from the many village polytechnics, and there are no opportunities. What must you do beyond lamenting, beyond complaining? The median age in Kenya is between 19 and 25. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. Yet, the opportunities are dwindling because of artificial intelligence. Those of you who went or used to go to banks where there were 20 tellers, you now find one teller. There are now restaurants in Nairobi where there are no waiters. There is a robot. You press, you want eggs and coffee, and the robot says, yes, sir, yes, madam, and brings it. Which means in a hotel where there were 200 people employed, in the next 5 years, there'll only be 2 people employed. If you are not creative, you will never get opportunities to express yourself. The question is, how will you adapt? How will you ensure that you are relevant? How will you ensure that you are relevant beyond Nyeri? Because one of the things that is now happening in Kenya today, which never used to happen when we were growing, my good friend Gashisho came here from primary school, he was in Maseno, in what was then Nyanza, then went to the University of Nairobi. Today, it is possible to go to a school in Tumutumu Primary, Tumutumu Secondary School, then you go to Karatina, then you come to work in the governor's office. You think Kenya is Nyeri. I'm suggesting to you that you are not competing with fellow Nyerians. You are competing with Kenya. You are competing with East Africa. You are competing with the world. I remember many years ago, one of my teachers told me, we had just graduated with our undergraduate degrees, and he was persuading me to pursue my master's degree. He told me, young man, there is no competition at the top. Remove yourself from the pack. At the top, there is no competition. So if you want to be engaged in competition, ya mambilikimo, competing who is taller than the others, you remain the ambilikimo. You must go out there. We are now talking about Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which means that the boundaries of the 55 African countries will be open. If you have a product here, that product will be sold in Dakar in Senegal. So if you have your macadamia here, you are not just targeting the taste of the people from Nyeri, you are targeting the taste of people in Porto Novo in Benin. Are you ready? This is the question. And these are not idle questions. During your presence here, you may treat it just as a jamboree. We have come to Nyeri. We have come to Kamukunji. We will meet the governor and his team. Then you go away. Then you write in your curriculum vitae that you attended a conference. But when you are alone, when you are in solitude, you'll ask yourself, how have I benefited? I tell young people who come to my office and we run our foundation, we are present in 50 African countries. And I tell every young person, write for me your 10-year personal development plan, holding all factors constant. And factors are never constant. What do you want to do 10 years from today? I remember my decision to be a lawyer was made when I was in Form 1 in 1975. That is when I made the decision. In that year, I also made the decision to be a martial artist. And I was told some martial artists would perform. And I continued to practice martial art 50 years down the line. Discipline is critical in anyone's life. The question is, are you prepared? The good bishop here talked about the arrows in the quiver. You may indeed be arrows, and arrows you are. But what kind of an arrow are you? Are you sharp or you are blunt? The world has no time for arrows that are blunt. Lakini Waswahili wanasema kinolewacho hupata. Mnanielewa? That which is sharpened becomes sharp. We are here to sharpen you. Je, mtapata? That is a decision that you must make as an individual. Most of you here may be Christians. Some of you may be Muslims. There is a story in the Christian Bible that I love. Perhaps more than one story. There is something in the Bible where God says, go and subdue the world. How do you subdue the world? Through innovation. Artificial intelligence comes from man's mind. We are subduing the world. We have shortened distances through air travel. It is man that made that. I remember many years ago in mobile telephony, I do not know whether His Excellency the Governor remembers this, when the phone you had was something that you did like this, and you say phone number 001 Nyeri, and half of your village would wait for a phone call. Then there came a phone which you would do this. Then there came the call box, so that if you had a date with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you'd sit next to the red thing waiting. And if the phone call did not come, then it was destroyed that day. Then there came a phone that you just pressed. It went. Then there came the fax machine. It went. Today, the world is at your fingertips. With a smartphone, you can access anywhere in the world. Are we taking advantage of it? When there were riots in Tanzania on the 29th day of October and internet was shut, the following day they reported that the Tanzanian economy had lost 238 million United States dollars. In a single day. The figures may vary. That is how important mobile telephony has become. Are you participating in that arena? I know young people who now sit in their rooms and make millions because they are interacting with the world. Are you one of them? Ladies and gentlemen, you have a good opportunity here to change, to go forth, and to read. There is a poem which I want all of you to read. It is a poem written by Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese American. You can Google it. The poem is called Fear. I'll summarize that poem. Khalil Gibran says that when the river leaves its source and it is moving towards the ocean, it trembles. As it passes through the valley, it asks itself whether it will lose itself. It asks itself whether it should go back, but it's too late to go back. So the river must go on to the ocean. And when it gets into the ocean, it thinks it had lost itself, but it has not. It has simply become part of a bigger thing. I'm urging you to be fearless. I see one of the sponsors here is Shofco. A young friend of mine called Odede is the one behind Shofco. Born and bred in Kibera in Nairobi. Got an opportunity to go to the United States of America. Shofco is now present, I suspect, in over 20 counties in Kenya and still growing strong. He grew up in Kibera. He did not give up. And when he went out, he remembered his community. I'm giving you these examples that you may know that you have a responsibility for yourself, but also a responsibility for your community. There is a basketballer in the Democratic Republic of Congo called Dikembe Mutombo. How many of you have heard about Dikembe Mutombo? I want you to go and Google him. He was one of the biggest stars in the NBA in the United States of America. If you go to Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, he has built one of the biggest hospitals in DRC. And this is what he said: when the lift or the elevator takes you up, bring it down for others to enjoy it. That is what we must do. Before we came here, at the suggestion of His Excellency the Governor, I went and saw a young girl who is hugging a tree. And I had a conversation with that young girl. For those who just watch her hugging the tree, you may not appreciate the philosophy. But this is what she said in part, that she is breaking her own record in the next 1 hour, I think now. Then she'll go on. She's sending a message on environment in a dramatic way, that we should not cut down indigenous trees, that we should remember that is the tree that makes the forest. He has chosen a path. Some may say, this is a mad girl, but in order to change the world, you must be mad. But you must be methodically mad. Today, I'm inviting you to the land of the mad. But be mad in a methodical way, in a manner that can be monitored and evaluated. This is what we are asking. We also had the opportunity of going through the exhibitions. I saw a young girl who is an artist using a pencil for purposes of drawing portraits. I could not get her number, but I can imagine if she were to be commissioned by Serena Hotel or any one chain of the hotels to do their portraits in their rooms, she would be a multi-millionaire. So being a multi-millionaire is not that your family has bewitched you. When you fail, you begin to think of people who have bewitched you. No, you are the one who is bewitching yourself. I talked about stories in the Bible. I talked about go ye and subdue the world. But there is another statement found in the book of Genesis, that by the sweat of thy brow, and I was telling the bishop, by the sweat of thy brow, and there is a Kiswahili saying, or several Kiswahili saying, one of them is, mtaka cha uvunguni, sharti ainame. And the other one is mgaga na upwa, hali wali mkavu. Sasa, vijana, mnavyo vitaka viko uvunguni, sharti muiname. But the story I wanted to tell you in the Bible, I have not said it, is found in the book of Daniel. It's the story of three young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those young men were in exile. And the story is told that King Nebuchadnezzar ordered that his image be worshipped. And if you did not worship his image, you would be sentenced to death. And these young men refused to do so. And this is what they told King Nebuchadnezzar, that we will not worship your image, because the God that we worship will save us. And even if he does not, we will not worship you. What am I suggesting for young people? You must believe in something for which you are prepared to die. Because as Malcolm X once said, if you don't stand for anything, you will fall. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And I'm urging you to be warriors for truth. But how do you speak the truth? You must be sensible when you speak the truth. And there is another story in the Bible which summarizes that, then I'll conclude. I'm assuming that you read the Bible. I'm assuming that you read the Holy Quran. Do you? Do you? Even if you are not a believer, just read it as a storybook. And there is a story of how you must be wise when you are dealing with leadership like His Excellency the Governor here. And circumstances define how you behave. I remember myself, before I continue with the story, many years ago, in 1985, I went to see then a government minister, Simeon Nyachai. He asked me to be in his office at 7 a.m. in the morning. I was in the office at 6:30 in the morning. He saw me at 8 p.m. in the evening. And when I entered, he told me, you have passed the test of patience. As young people, we must learn to be patient. The things you want, you may not get because you don't need them sometimes. You want many things which you do not need. But I wanted to tell you a story. When you are approaching a king, you must be careful. John the Baptist was approaching a king and he was shouting, "Oh, you Herodias, you are having an affair with the wife of your brother." He was arrested, Salome danced, and he was cut. But then there was Nathan. Nathan wanted to tell David that he was an adulterer. And this is what he did. He went to David and said, "Oh king, in your kingdom, in a kingdom there was a rich man. And there was another poor man who had only 1 ewe of a lamb. And one day a visitor visited that 1 ewe, that rich man, and instead of taking from his flock, he took the ewe of a lamb of this poor man. And David said, if there is such a one in my kingdom, he shall be killed." Then he said, "Oh king, it is you. It is you who has taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite and caused him to be killed by the sword of the Ammonite. The sword shall never leave your house." Wisdom. So when you go to the governor and you want sponsorship for something, know how to tell the governor. Because sometimes we lose the things that we deserve because of the manner in which we ask for them. Be wise. Be wise. Be humble. Be persistent. Be curious. And it will be well with you. In my foundation, as I've told you, we have a youth program in 50 African countries. And our young people, as I speak now, if you go to Liberia on the 12th, they'll be launching a clothing line for clothes that will be sold in the continent of Africa. Young people. If you go to Monrovia, you'll find one of the biggest cyber cafes. Our young people, they started with only 1,000 United States dollars. If you go to Ghana, at a high school called Obuasi, we have just started an innovation school. If you listen to one of my young mentees, Benny Hinn Walubengo, he now has a printing press in Nairobi. If you listen to one of our young mentees in Ghana, whom you listen to, the biggest YouTuber in Africa today, Wodemaya. Go to Tanzania, one of the leading Kiswahili writers today, Joramu Mkumbi. And we are gathering 47 young representatives from across 47 countries next year, and I want you young men to be part of our program. We have now established a youth program which brings together the following foundations: the Walter Sisulu Foundation, the Julius Kambarage Nyerere Foundation, the Patrice Emery Lumumba Foundation, the Thomas Isidore Sankara Foundation, and we are creating youth programs across Africa which will be launched. Not so long ago, on the 9th day of November, we had a major Pan-African Institute, and our guest of honor was the former president of Botswana, Ian Khama. We are going to launch another youth program on the 15th day of February in Lusaka, Zambia, and thereafter in Liberia. We are of the view that young people must be supported. And I want you to look at those foundations, and through her, you know, in these matters, many are called, but few are chosen. So many are here. Lakini wachache tu watachaguliwa. Waswahili wanasema wakati mwingine ni jukumu lako kujichagua mwenyewe. Naombeni mjichague. Ukitaka kuwa hapa Nyeri tu kumsaidia ndugu gavana, utamsaidia ndugu gavana tu. Alafu utakuwa mzee. Halafu utakuwa mgonjwa, halafu tutakuzika ukiwa na miaka 100. Lakini ukitaka kuwa Mkenya, start with Nyeri. Start with your village. I tell people that when you tell me you are successful, you take me to your village first. I want to know whether in your village, both your enemies and friends can say, we don't like him or her, but this is what he contributed. Then you move to your ward, and I want to see what you have done in your ward. Then you move to Nyeri. Then you move to Kenya. Then you move to Africa. Then you move to the world. That young girl who is hugging a tree, you'll be reading about her in the Guinness Book of Records. You think she's just hugging a tree? She's a philosopher. She's a warrior in the class of Wangare Mutamathai. Are you? Are you? She's been rained on. She has not eaten for 2 days. Wewe unataka kula nyama choma. I'm now concluding by saying that if you want to succeed, you must sacrifice. Sacrifice. Lazima ujinyime. Ukijinyima, basi wakati mwafaka utapewa. Excellency Governor, Honorable Minister, you have done a good thing. You have brought all these young people, and you have brought them here that they may acquire knowledge. And I hope, Honorable Minister, that you shall cause them to form themselves into circles, thematic circles. Those who want to go into masonry, let them do so that they may begin to engage in economic activities. You know, Waswahili wanasema, mkono mtupu haulambwi. Mkono mtupu haulambwi. And I want to conclude with a Kiswahili proverb, and anybody who gives me a close interpretation of that proverb, I'll give you 2,000 shillings. Listen to this Kiswahili saying. Na mtu ambaye ataitafsiri kwa lugha nyepesi, nitakupa shilingi za Kenya, sio za Uganda, 2,000. Naisema pole pole. Mlilala handingwa handingwa. Mlilala handingwa handingwa. Mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani anakipaza sauti? Mlilala handingwa handingwa. Mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani atanitafsiria? Mlilala handingwa handingwa. Mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani? Nani? Kuna kijana pale.
Aya, njoo. Kuja. Aya, kuja. Hata Patrick anaongezea kazawadi pale. Wale wote wanataka kujibu, watu 5 tu.
Hii zawadi lazima itafika 10,000. Nimeanza tu na 2,000. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Anza.
Mlilala mkidanganywa, mkaambiwa msiule.
Umejaribu. Nani tena atajaribu?
Aya, kuja. Nataka watu 5.
Kwa Kiswahili kizuri unasema njoo.
Njoo mwanangu. Msije wote.
Mmoja. Atakapopata tunazimisha.
Wacha tuko wangapi sasa?
Okay, mmoja. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule.
Aya. Handingwa.
Inamaanisha umeandaliwa kila kitu, Lakini ulikuwa umelala tu.
Bas, ushapata. Nendeni mkakae.
Haya, hao wengine sasa, wewe unakuja aje kupata ukiwa wa kwanza na umesikia inapanda bei?
Sasa njoo.
Haya, mpigeni makofi basi.
Wewe unafanya nini? Event. Yeah. Sasa mimi nakualika kwa foundation yangu, and in addition to this, you'll get in touch with the minister. We'll give you a donation of 20,000.
Aya, Professor. Patrick, the regional brand business lead Mount Kenya region for Safaricom, pia anamwambia akona nafasi mbili. Anaweza patiwa simu ama achague pale kuna kabox, achague Kenya atashinda tu hapo apatiwe.
Bas.
Aya, harakisha, ende uchukue. Akona ruhusa ya kuchagua, unaweza chagua ama uchukue simu Kenya unataka, alafu kuje nayo.
As I conclude, what I want, the message I'm sending with this: you cannot win the lottery without buying the ticket. Don't fear to fail. Failure is part of success. If you sit down, unasema mimi ni mwoga, nitafanya makosa, hutapata. Kwa hivyo Mungu awajalieni.